Okay. Good morning, everyone. For us, this is a day to acknowledge great accomplishments for the American people. When American people voted for a Democratic White House and a Democratic majorities in the Congress, we promised help is on the way. And now help is here. Democrats have been living for the people to build back better, passing the American Rescue Plan to crush the coronavirus and defeat the economic crisis, including with the Biden child tax cut. Biden tax credit for some, it really is a tax cut for all. Passing landmark laws for equal pay, empowering workers, lowering health care costs, creating jobs, rebuilding the infrastructure, and more. Thanks to the Democratic leadership, the Build Back Better economy is working. Thank you, Mr. President. Jobs are coming back, going from 60,000 jobs every month to 60,000 jobs every 3 days. 30 days, 3 days. And 1/10 the time, 60,000 jobs. Wages are rising, checks are growing at the strongest rate in 15 years. The economy is booming. Yesterday, you saw the economy grow at the fastest rate in nearly 40 years. Families are benefiting. Poverty is set to be cut in half this year, with the share of Americans living in poverty set to reach the lowest level on record. But to sustain this growth for years to come and to ensure that we can share in its benefits, that all can share in its benefits, we need to be transformative in terms of how we go forward with infrastructure investments and reconciliation bills that truly meet families' needs. We will build back better with more jobs, cut taxes, and lower costs for all. We're proud to be here with our dazzling chairs of the committees who made so much of this possible. You'll be hearing from Leader Steny Hoyer, Whip Jim Clyburn, Assistant Speaker Catherine Clark, and our committee chairs stand ready to answer any questions about what is happening. Right now, we are celebrating record-breaking accomplishments on passage of the appropriations bills, thanks to the virtuoso performance of our great chair, Rosa DeLauro. We are just so grateful to Frank Pallone for, in every one of the bills for the last year and a half, that he has been there to help with crushing the virus, and now truly doing so, and actually having an impact on the infrastructure legislation as well. Our chair, Peter DeFazio, is just a maestro at all of this. He knows issues that relate to infrastructure better than anyone. He's been at it for decades on the Committee of Jurisdiction, and now so proudly for all of us as its chairman. But he also knows how to save the planet, and the combination of those two is absolutely essential at this time. And Richie Neal, my goodness, everything goes through Richie Neal's committee. Thank you for the child tax cut. Thank you for so many other things that I'm sure you will tell us about. Richie said, you know, everybody goes out and makes investments and then comes to us to pay for them. We want to initiate some of our own ideas about this. Child tax credit, family and medical leave, child care, so many issues. Thank you to the Ways and Means Committee, and the list goes on. We're also joined by our distinguished chair and vice chair of the caucus, Congress, Mr. Chairman Hakeem Jeffries, Vice Chair Peter Aguilar, and the chair of our DCCC, who knows why we have to make sure the American people get the message, because it is in their interest. With that, I'm very pleased to yield to the distinguished, I have to say it right. Chuck said I didn't say it right yesterday. Distinguished Democratic leader, Majority Leader of the House, Steny Hoyer.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. The Speaker said it. The last time the economy grew at this pace and it was so good, Ronald Reagan said it was good morning in America. What an extraordinary first 7 months we've had in the Congress of the United States. We infamously started out with a tragedy for our democracy. And yesterday we dealt with that in a bipartisan way. House Democrats have gotten an extraordinary amount of work done, this Congress, on behalf of the American people. And one of the most important things we've done is enacting the American Rescue Plan. Reached out and lifted up millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of Americans. And the economy shows that. Economic numbers show the impact of this law is having substantial positive effect, with the economy growing at its fastest pace in 4 decades. That law directed resources to speed up vaccinations, allowing for the safe reopening of businesses and schools, returning millions to work. Nearly 70% of the adults in our country are now at least partially vaccinated. We need more, much more. We need everybody to become vaccinated. But we provided for quick access and universal access. Now everybody needs to take advantage of it. Nearly half of our total population is fully protected, but we see today that that is not enough, and the President is urging, and we are urging, more. Unfortunately, some of our colleagues have for too long said it really wasn't necessary. More than 300 million vaccinations have taken place since President Biden took office. That is a success, and one we need to keep building on as we work to get every American vaccinated. The law also provided another round of direct payments that have helped keep families afloat, with 171 million direct payments going out the door, lifting not only those 171 million people, but our economy. The American Rescue Plan also launched the expanded middle-class tax cut we call also the child tax, to make sure that children can make it in America and are lifted up in America. As a result of that action, 30 million American families received their first monthly payments in July of $300 for each child under 6 and $250 for each child from 6 to 17. With a lump sum payment of the balance when they file taxes next year, they will mean $3,600 for each child and under 6 and $3,000 for children ages 6 through 17, 2021. That is prioritizing children in America. This middle-class tax cut is having a real impact on families, helping them afford everyday expenses and to purchase goods, which helps the economy. Across the country, more than 4 million children will be lifted out of poverty by this expanded child tax payment to families. And it's projected to cut the child poverty rate by as much as a half. That's God's work. It's the people's work. The American Rescue Plan with the child tax credit is making a transformational investment in the lives of children and the families across America. I'm extraordinarily proud of what we've achieved. A lot of legislation that the American people were told that we would do has been done. It sits in the Senate, and hopefully it will be adopted to the benefit of the American people. Now I want to introduce my good friend, the whip, who has been so critical to the success that we've had in the House of Representatives on passing this historic legislation, Jim Clyburn of South Carolina. Jim?
I thank the leader for yielding. I thank the speaker for the tremendous leadership that she's given to this caucus, and I thank all of my colleagues here who have been so good on all of these issues. Our chair, our assistant speaker, the chairs of our various committees. I think we saw on yesterday, or reports today, of what happened in Georgia on yesterday involving the issue of voting. Among the things that we have done, we've passed H.R. 1, and we sent H.R. 1 to the Senate, and the Senate is now exerting its will as it relates to that language. We have not yet passed H.R. 4, and I want to speak to that because some of the reporting of that is not quite accurate. H.R. 4 was basically a renewal, or getting beyond, or trying to get beyond the Supreme Court's decision as it relates to the 1965 Voting Rights Act. 9 years ago in Shelby v. Holder, the Supreme Court said to us that the formula in Section 4 that triggers pre-clearance of Section 5 was outdated, and we needed to redo the formula. The Speaker then authorized several people to go about the business of updating the formula. Now, when you deal with that, you got to go out, you got to gather facts, and you put that all together. And we've done it. Both the committee that G.K. Butterfield was working with, they've had all of their hearings. They've developed a record. Judiciary Committee chaired by Jerry Nadler, they've had theirs, and they are now putting all that together, and we expect by next week they will lay out, we hope, on the anniversary date of the signing of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which was August 6, 1965, several months after Bloody Sunday. And so that's the date that we have decided to roll out H.R. 4. Now, H.R. 4 then goes to the Senate. We have heard with all of the negotiations we've had with various people that there is even Republican support for H.R. 4. How much Republican support, we don't know. But we do believe that we have a very good product. And there are two things we have to keep in mind when we talk about voting rights. Number one, the original 1965 Voting Rights Act dealt with a history of discrimination. And that's why that act was, what, 6 states were the targets. And therefore, we had to have it narrowly tailored, and we had to justify it with this record. However, there's tremendous sentiment in our caucus for expanding pre-clearance to all 50 states. And that is because 48 states have either proposed or passed. 48 states have proposed, and I think 28 states have already passed restrictive laws, which means that a lot of those states would not be covered because they do not have a history of discriminating. They have just taken that on as a new place to be when it comes to voting. And so we have to be prepared for a state like Pennsylvania that is expressing some onerous ideas about voting going forward. So I am very pleased with the work that we've done with H.R. 1 and with H.R. 4. I think that we will have a product going to the Senate by next week this time that will meet the tests that are required. And with that, I'm pleased to yield to Assistant Speaker, Ms. Clark.
Thank you, Whip Clyburn, and thank you, Speaker Pelosi and Leader Hoyer and the incredible leaders behind me for delivering these historic and life-changing wins for the American people. This week, ably led by our chairwoman, Rosa DeLauro, House Democrats passed 9 major funding bills that not only confront the challenges that we face, but will build a more equitable and sustainable future. This bold funding package puts American families front and center, exactly where they should be. We're making health care more affordable and feeding hungry children and families. We're getting people back to work and creating thousands of good-paying green jobs with investments in clean energy and science. We're tackling the housing crisis through 125,000 new low-income vouchers. We're acting to prevent domestic violence and helping survivors and confronting sexual assault and harassment in the military. We are making unprecedented investments in our children and childcare, including Head Start. And for the first time in decades, we're standing up for health care for all women and their constitutional rights by repealing the Hyde and Helms amendments and global and domestic gag rules. The last 18 months have been so challenging. I don't have to tell anybody about that. But we are meeting, as the House Democratic Caucus, these historic challenges with historic progress. Our message to the American people is simple. We see you, and we are building an economy that includes you. From the American Rescue Plan to the funding package, and next through infrastructure, we are rebuilding our economy with equity at the center and with jobs and opportunity as our promise. We will ensure that every American, every woman and child has a fair shot at success. Thank you. It is a good morning indeed, and I yield back.
Thank you so much. Listening to our leadership go over so many of these things, I think it would be important to put an exclamation point on some of this, starting with the child tax credit. As our distinguished assistant leader said, it's about the children, as Steny referenced. It's about the children. Oh. It's about he has floor duty, about the children. Mr. Neal, would you like to put an exclamation point on all of this?
Sure. I mean, I thought, thanks to the speaker for her leadership, a reminder of how grim things were 17 months ago when we stepped outside of her office just past midnight with our first plan, and then the HEROES Act that she largely authored after the CARES Act, which saved the American economy, and then the President's Rescue Package. When you think of what was accomplished, including the child credit, which we expanded now into more middle-class households across the country, it's going to have a profound impact. And clearly, to sit in the Oval Office with the president and say to him, we're going to include the child credit, and he said, I'm going to support you, and to talk about the dependent care credit, the expanded EITC, family medical leave. And there are 2 million people across America who sleep every night now knowing that their pensions are not going to be lost because of the multi-employer pension plan progress that we put forward. So we made it possible for people to simultaneously increase demand, because supply will certainly follow. Those are basic economic realities, but I can't tell you how extraordinary it is when you pick up that Times report yesterday morning to say that poverty rates have been cut in half just because of the work that we've done. And when you continue, as Steny pointed out, 170 million people receive direct benefits from the federal government. There's a role for government in our lives, and the direct intervention of the federal government on 3 successive occasions have helped turn around this economy. 22 million jobs were lost, and now we're back to pre-pandemic levels. That's, I think, what we are acknowledging today, but it was the work of the Democratic Caucus, patience, but not to miss the point how important it is to have a Democrat sitting in the White House.
That was some of what the distinguished chairman mentioned happened early in the administration of Joe Biden. Part of that rescue plan was the work of the Energy and Commerce Committee. Mr. Chairman, do you want to brag about some of what's there and what's to come?
Well, I'll just mention 2 points relative to health care. First of all, during the whole time of the COVID crisis while Donald Trump was president, we were constantly hearing complaints about lack of supplies, inability to get help, whether it was testing, vaccines hadn't started then, to the American people. And all that has just completely turned around since Joe Biden and since the Democrats have been in the majority in both houses in Washington. And if you look at the American Rescue Plan in terms of the money that went out and the way that we've been able to handle the COVID crisis, I mean, I know that we're not totally there yet. We have the Delta variant, and We still are wearing masks. But the bottom line is that we don't have those supply chain problems. More and more people keep getting vaccinated. More of the vaccine gets out. It's really now a problem of getting people to take the vaccine. Not that it's not available. It's generally available. So I think that there's been a real change in terms of our ability to handle this pandemic and make significant progress. And then the other thing I would say is health insurance. You know, in the American Rescue Plan, we made permanent the subsidies and the help for people to pay for their health insurance. And the number of people that have signed up for Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act is unbelievable. Huge numbers, huge increases. Part of that is because we had the outreach, you know, we did the advertisement and we did everything to make people sign up, but also because of the subsidies, which were significantly expanded. And so we just want to continue that. If you look at what's being proposed in the infrastructure bill, whether it's health related or it's in terms of creating jobs and addressing some of the other infrastructure concerns, we're just going to build on these successes. I think that we're at the point today where we can take a victory lap, if you will, for all that we've done, but also make a commitment to the American people about how much more we're going to do. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Well, in this time of Olympics, I like the victory lap comparison. Again, chronologically, next we did the INVEST Act, of which we are very, very proud. I spoke earlier about the credentials that Mr. DeFazio brings to this subject. I would like to yield the podium to him.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. Before I go to the INVEST Act, I'd like to point out some of the things in the rescue package. You know, a lot of people are complaining today because the planes are full, they're crowded. There wouldn't be many planes in the air today if we hadn't done, you know, the numerous packages to save the aviation industry. It's 11% of our economy. Our economy would not be booming the way it is today had we not saved that industry. If a pilot got laid off, then it could take up to a year and a half for them to get recertified to fly a plane again. Flight attendants, a minimum of 3 to 6 months, much longer probably. So that was tremendous. We also saved the transit industry. You know, people are now starting to go back to work. They're starting to move around more. Transit wouldn't have been ready and it wouldn't be there if we had not supported the transit agency through these packages. So those were incredible things that we tend to forget about. We did them, we saved them, you know, what, so what? No, those were amazing things that we did that wouldn't have happened without the Democrats running the House. Now, the INVEST Act, you know, I set out an objective to deal with our crumbling infrastructure, to deal with it in a way that also dealt with climate change, to create millions of good-paying jobs, to reach into areas that of persistent poverty, you know, provide new transit options, you know, a whole host of things. I'm not going to, you know, regurgitate all that again. Right now, we have not yet seen a bill out of the Senate, so I can't particularly comment on it. I have been engaged, though, with my colleagues, my Democratic colleagues, who have chairs of jurisdiction, and with the White House just yesterday. And I'm expressing a strong desire that should the Senate pass a bill, that we should conference that bill and work out our differences. We've already passed a major bill in the House. It has all the objectives that the President and the White House set out for me, and I want to make certain that they're in the final package. So that would best be accomplished through a conference.
Thank you, Mr. DeFazio. And now, up until last night, we were on the floor with our appropriations bills. Mr. Hoyer, Mr. Clyburn, Ms. Clark, and I are all appropriators, so we have some good judgment about what, how to pass an appropriations bill. Rosa DeLauro set a higher standard than we ever knew, and we thank her, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you very, very much for your leadership and our work together with regard to appropriations. And I say that with regard to all of my colleagues as we've made our way over the last several months, in the last 17 months. Just to say a word before appropriations, it's really thrilling that with your work, Madam Speaker, and the work of Chairman Neal, that we have a child tax credit that is going to be a lifeline to the struggling middle class, as well as lifting 55% of children out of poverty in this nation, and that is a transformation. And it is Social Security, as you've quoted, Madam Speaker, Social Security for children. And we could do, well, we can do more. We need to make it permanent, but there we go. But I'm very, very excited about, we passed 9 appropriations bills. And in addition to that, the security supplemental bill. So, and the focus of those bills was to make America stronger at home and again respected in the world. And this is, we looked at what we needed to do and looked at what the state of our country was, and decades of disinvestment, devastation from the pandemic. And the time we believed was now to reinvest in the American people. And the bills make historic increases in critical funding with the goal of creating good-paying American jobs, to grow opportunity for the middle class, for our small businesses, and to provide that lifeline to working families and to the vulnerable. I may add that I'm also very, very proud of the work that was done, and I might add in a bipartisan way, on community projects. We're bubbling up from our communities, where members sat with their city councils, they sat with their nonprofit groups, and they came forward with the kinds of critical needs that we could try to address through this process, and it happened. We have made investments in education and nutrition, rural and underserved communities, rebuild the nation's infrastructure, confront the climate crisis, again with regard to good-paying jobs, protecting our democracy, looking at the disparities, advancing equal treatment for women, fostering a brighter future for the people in this country. And we have reinvested in diplomacy and development and reasserting American global leadership. So our caucus has demonstrated tremendous leadership in passing these very important bills, and I look forward to work with the Senate so that we can enact them into law. And with that, I yield, Madam Speaker.
It's important to note that for, 10 Congresses now, 20 years, Rosa DeLauro has been introducing the child tax credit legislation. And so, Mr. Neal has been a partner in all of that. But as far as Rosa is concerned, as usual, she was persistent, dissatisfied, and relentless, and the children benefit. To make it known to the public, to build the consensus in our caucus, our distinguished leadership of the House caucus, Mr. Hakeem Jeffries and Pete Aguilar, who is an appropriator as well, have given us a forum to build that consensus. And our distinguished chair, Sean Patrick Maloney, he is trying to convey that message to the American people so that people will take advantage of the opportunities that are there. They and all of our chairs stand ready to answer any of your questions. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Madam Speaker, just on the issue of voting rights, can you tell us a little bit more about your meeting with President Biden today? And more specifically, when is it? And also, if you can tell us if you do have the HR floor ready next week, when you intend to bring it up on the floor.
Well, Mr. Clyburn has addressed this very thoroughly because, thank you for your question, this is of the highest priority for us, the sanctity of the vote, the basis for a democracy, and the assault on the democracy that is being perpetrated across the country and states across the country to suppress the vote in a way that just undermines the strength of our democracy. I have not seen what has been my understanding is there's something that the Senate has put together. I myself have not seen it because I was doing our other work, and I will see it. Our hope with the the White House, well, we'll see. It's the president's meeting, and so it's his agenda. But it is well known to the administration and to the United States Senate that the H.R. 1 is essential to us in the House because it is fundamental to our democracy. Mr. Clyburn, I think, went into some detail about what August 6th is. It's fraught with meaning as the anniversary of the first Voting Rights Act being passed in 1965, and that our goal is to be ready with something. What happened was that the Supreme Court said that as Mr. Clyburn mentioned, that we had to have our formulas updated. We didn't think so, but they're the Supreme Court, so we wanted to make the next presentation of the bill ironclad constitutionally. We were on a path to do that until just a few weeks ago, the court again made an assault on the Voting Rights Act on Section 2, and so we had to go back to make some modifications. I feel confident that we will be ready. As soon as ready, we will bring it to the floor. Yes, sir.
Madam Speaker.
These seats here have some kind of advantage, so you all should know that. No offense to anybody back.
Madam Speaker, should immigration reform...
Excuse me, sir. Mr. Clyburn, did you want to add anything on the voting? Anybody? Mr. Jeffries? No? Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, should immigration reform be in a budget reconciliation bill? And if it is and the Senate parliamentarian rules it out, should Senate Democrats overrule the parliamentarian to include it?
Well, I'll just address the first part and yield to Mr. Aguilar to speak to that. He has been a real leader on this issue and working very hard on it. I do believe that immigration should be in the reconciliation, some piece of that in the reconciliation. I never go into Senate rules. Mr. Aguilar?
And I don't think I'll go into Senate rules either. Yesterday, I was pleased to join Chair Lofgren and Chair Nadler, as well as Chair Durbin and Chairman Menendez, and a group of others in the White House to talk to the president about this and to reiterate our support for reconciliation, including immigration proposals. We should be guided by, and I know the chairs and the people behind me, speak to this as well. We should be guided by providing the greatest good for the greatest number of people in our country. And so including a path to citizenship for those with DACA status, TPS, essential workers, and those farm workers, bipartisan bills, most three of those proposals, bipartisan bills that this House has passed under the leadership of the Speaker, the leader and the whip. And so that's what we should be guided by. And that's the president's commitment, is that he will continue to support, he will speak out on this. We appreciated it. And without speaking to the Senate discussion, we're going to be guided by providing a path to citizenship for those in our country who know of who this is their country, as the Speaker has said time and time again. Thank you.
Just for your information, I'm sure most of you know this, but to qualify for being included in a reconciliation bill, the proposal has to have an impact on the budget. We have clear numbers to that effect to go forward. So again, without going into how the Senate considers something significant or not, we won't go into that and what the Senate should do if not. But we know we have a very good case for this to be included.
You said in your letter last night it's a moral imperative for Congress to extend the eviction moratorium.
Yeah.
Are you frustrated that the administration took so long to make that ask of Congress? And is it your...
I'll be happy to answer that, but let's stay on subject here, and then I'll come back to that, okay? Any questions on our agenda? I know some of our other colleagues want to weigh in on that. Yes?
I was hoping to get more clarity on voting rights. I heard Mr. Clyburn say, I think that we will have a product going to the Senate by next week this time that will meet the tests that are required. Does that mean there will be a House bill, and will you bring the House back for a vote?
Mr. Clyburn, would you like to speak to that?
Well, H.R. 4, or the John R. Lewis Voting Rights and Advancement Act, is what we renamed it, has, the bill last year was based upon issues that we were aware of and that were before us. As the Speaker said 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, the Supreme Court issued another opinion on the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And so therefore, we are including our language as to what will fix that, as well as what will get us to where we ought to be on pre-clearance. Now, I know we are supposed to be out next week, but I also am realistic enough to know that we may not be out next week or the week following it. So we are going to get this bill prepared, hopefully announce what it is on August 6th, a bill that can go to the Senate. When it goes to the Senate is when we get a chance to vote on it.
And may I just say, let's not get ourselves too concerned about a date. The date of August 6th is so important to us, fraught with so much meaning historically, so much pointing to the need for us to perpetuate what in that first bill. But when it is ready is when we'll call members back, and when it is ready is when it will be ironclad constitutionally. And I salute the distinguished whip and the members who are working on this very important piece of democracy. There are other issues like nullification of election. There are other things that we have to deal with in the H.R. 1 beyond what was in it originally, because in the last election and since then we have seen further undermining of the vote. Mr.
Well, we're going to continue to move forward, thanks to the leadership of Speaker Pelosi and Jim Clyburn and others, in addressing the attack on democracy and the voter suppression epidemic with the fierce urgency of now, including dealing with the most recent Supreme Court decision, as the Speaker and the whip have illustrated. At the same time, we're going to continue to make tremendous progress for the American people. The Biden economy is growing at the fastest rate in 40 years. Millions of good-paying jobs have been created. A massive middle-class tax cut has been enacted. Democrats are doing our damn thing. And we're just getting started for the people.
Thank you. Where the rubber meets the road, where the rubber meets the road on voting is, of course, in the elections, and I wanted to have our distinguished chair of our DCCC, Mr. Sean Patrick Maloney. By the way, today is his birthday.
Happy birthday.
He's 55 years old. I told him this morning in a conference that we had with the members that in the casino, 55 is called hardway 10. Anybody of you go to casinos? No? Any of you go to casinos? Hardway 10, because you can get a soft 10, 6 and a 4. There's a 6 and a 4 on each die. There's only 1 5 on each die. 55, hardway 10, happy birthday, hardway 10. It's hardway 10, but a glorious cause for celebration for the rest of us. Mr. Sean Patrick Maloney.
Just when you think you don't know every wrinkle of the Speaker's extraordinary talent. When I think of the Speaker, I think of being on a heater in Las Vegas, yeah. But I have now discovered that the title of the book we're going to write together on why we won this election. It's going to be called Hardway 10 for the American people. Well, look, you've heard my colleagues speak in detail about how Democrats are delivering strongest economic growth in 40 years, a middle-class tax cut, giving families back their own money to help families, and an infrastructure plan. Investing in American infrastructure to bring our jobs back, grow manufacturing, stop sending jobs to China, be less dependent on foreign energy, and grow this economy even more. And the only point I'll add to what my colleagues have said is that every Republican voted against the economic growth plan that is producing the greatest growth in 40 years. Every Republican voted against that expansion of middle-class tax cuts that is giving families their own money back. And we're going to find out where they are on infrastructure. And so while Democrats are delivering, the Republicans have told two dangerous lies. These are the evil twin towers of deception. A lie about the election, which led to the attack on this Capitol, which they are now trying to ignore, and a lie about the vaccine, which is making harder our efforts to end this pandemic and get our lives back. The Republican Party has become deceitful and dishonest, dangerous and divisive, but Democrats are delivering. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other questions on the great accomplishments of the Democrats in the first 6 months, 7 months of this year? You had one, right?
Yes, Madam Speaker, I wanted to go back to the question on eviction moratorium, where the Supreme Court, ruled a month ago that Congress could ask to take action on extending that eviction moratorium. Why is this action only coming now, the day that the House is supposed to leave for 7 weeks?
Okay. Are there any, I'm happy to come back to you. On this subject that we're here for?
On the child tax credit, are you confident that there will be an extension of the tax credit in any reconciliation bill? And would that be through 2025 or a permanent extension? And would that come with any additional aid for the IRS to implement it since they struggled with it?
I can guarantee you that IRS enforcement is going to be in the next package. Any one of my constituents, if you said to them, if you spend $40, we'll give you 140 back, my constituents get it. And what's happened is that the IRS no longer has the capacity in terms of technology and or man and woman power to do the sort of sophisticated audits that are now required. I heard a statistic the other day I hope you'll all zero in on, which tells the whole story. The compliance rate in terms of tax reporting in America generally hovers between 82, 83, 84, and in a good year, 85% of the American people, they pay their taxes. For wage earners, because of withholding, it's 99%. That's the difference. So for those of you who are paid in wages, like I know most of you are, it's easy. The IRS collects. But now it's more sophisticated avoidance, and in some offshore addresses, it's about evasion. And there's a distinction between the two, I know, because in settled law, you approach it differently. The child credit, my intention is to make it permanent. I must tell you the reviews are extraordinary so far, and I think part of it is because of the expansion of income levels for people who could secure that. And the other part of it has not been really reported. Some of the Christian conservative groups in America are really fine with this. They're pretty happy about it. They tend to vote on the other side, but they like this as an initiative. So I think as we go forward, the two questions you've asked, I hope have been answered.
Just very, very quickly, Madam Speaker, as the chairman said, it will be a part of the reconciliation bill, but it is already a part of the Financial Services and Government Appropriations subcommittee, which we just passed in the minibus yesterday. There is increased funding for the IRS, both for enforcement and for the implementation of the child tax credit. And we are told by the IRS, one is that we leave about $1 trillion on the table because of their, over the years, the inability for them to have what they needed with technology and staffing to make up that difference. And if you think about it, it's $1 trillion in what child poverty costs us in this country. And so what we want to try to do is to make sure they have the tools that they need to both enforce and to implement.
Thank you. I just want to say that, again, coming back to the children, the child tax credit, there are many other things that we've had in past legislation in the rescue package, but that need to be even more so in the reconciliation. The Congresswoman, Assistant Speaker Clark has been a champion on child care. So when we say Build Back Better, we're saying Build Back Better with women. Child care, now, not that gentlemen don't, men don't, dads don't benefit from the child care money as well. Child care, family and medical leave, early childhood education, universal pre-K, that is, issues that relate to home health care workers, to liberate people from their responsibilities at home in a way that they can go to work, pursue their careers, knowing that their family members are safe. So there's so many things about the human infrastructure that is in that bill, in addition to the child tax credit, which is so remarkable. Thank you for your leadership on child. She relentless, dissatisfied, persistent on the subject. One last question, then I'll go to yours.
Yeah, my question is on that exactly, because millions of people right now, of course, are holding their breath as they're watching this eviction moratorium expire. Were you caught off guard by the White House's statement not to extend it? And why did Democrats wait until now, hours before recess ends, hours before this eviction moratorium is going to expire, to try and hold a vote to extend it?
Excuse me, any comments on what has gone before? My colleagues? Any closing remarks? Okay. We're in a situation where the pandemic has, of course, taken its new shape. As we've talked before, these viruses are resourceful. When they are transmitted, they mutate, and that makes it more of a challenge. We know that that is what we are faced with now. And so the Center for Disease Control has talked in a new way about mask wearing, about urging vaccination, and the rest. The moratorium for eviction is a COVID initiative related to the intensity of the issue. And for $46 billion was allocated both in the year-end omnibus last December as well as in the rescue package, $46 billion. This money has largely gone out to the states and local governments to implement and to give to the renters so they can pay the rent, which helps the landlords, of course, too. And the fact is that almost $50 billion was allocated, $46 billion. Less than 10% of that has been spent. Around $3 billion is reported to me, but let's say it would be 10%. Why should the renters be punished for the fact that the system did not put money in their pockets to pay the rent to the landlords? So that's where we come to this. It's like, well, CDC, you have defined this, and these people have not gotten the money. So I think this is something that we'll work out. It isn't about any more money. The money is there, resting in localities and governor's offices across the country. So we would like the CDC to expand the moratorium. That's where it can be done. And then, and of course, with the public message of governors, mayors, et cetera, give the money for its purpose to the renters. So this is to me an imperative that it be done, and that as I say, timing is not everything on this, except that the moratorium ends. But again, if they know that the money will be released, then we'll go there. There are all kinds of talk among lawyers who thought this and that in the executive branch. I don't know. I don't want to be critical of what they have, because they just made the statement yesterday. But we're not going away from this issue, whether it's now or shortly thereafter. It is, I mean, have you ever seen an eviction? Sometimes even the law enforcement people go into these apartments are crying because they know they're going to do something that's going to put babies' cribs out on the street, personal belongings out on the street. It happens like that. Passers-by can even take that stuff. These people have been evicted, now have to find another place to live, to take this stuff that's now been on the street. It is the most heart-wrenching and so in defiance of everything that we say we are about in the Gospel of Matthew. When I needed shelter, you gave it to me, the words of the Lord. So I think that this is something that fairness and justice has to be done. We'll ensure that it does. Thank you all very much.
Members here until the House passes an extension?
Well,